Go.
Welcome everyone to this week's Storm Gang podcast. I am Gianmarco. We have the usual gang, Jason, Pierce, and our special guest today, Ryan Tanaka.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man.
So Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to give us a brief introduction about yourself and the YIMBY Arts Project.
Sure. But what's up with your... I just noticed. What's up with... What's going on with your face right now?
I'm hedging bets right now.
So this isn't the first time I've done this. It's actually called the half stash, I call it. And the first time I did it was after the campaign suspended when I was back in Reno helping the Nevada folks out.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I started shaving because I was just getting lazy about it, so I decided to shave. And then I stopped midway through. And I took a photo on myself for Instagram so you can only see like this part of it. And I kind of made it like a loading bar, like 50%. And then I just posted that. Then I just decided to just keep it that way. So it's my way.
It's a thing.
I also save on shaving products because I'm using literally half as much.
Congratulations, I guess.
Okay. One watt of electricity for the electric razor.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten mostly positive reception from it. The surprising thing is that it takes longer than people that I thought would realize how long it takes them to know that this is a thing. Like the first time I caught up with my friend, after 5 minutes of talking to each other face to face, she's like, "Wait a minute, is your face half shaven?" I'm like, yeah. And then other people just don't bring it up because they thought it might be offensive. I'm like, no, it's just.
That's kind of funny. That's kind of funny.
Cultural thing.
Yeah, does he know?
Really it up at all.
Does he realize that?
It's racist to mention the state of someone's facial hair.
Okay, so I guess I'll talk about myself. So I'm Ryan. I'm I guess you could call it that. I'm the founder of the YIMBY Arts Project. It's really just me for the most part, but I've been, even prior to the Yang campaign, I've been sort of a housing activist in the political space, and I'm part of the YIMBY movement. You might have heard of them before. They're called Yes in My Backyard, but it's the opposite from Not in My Backyard, a NIMBY, right? And it's becoming more popular now. I feel like the word NIMBY has been Bloomberg media. They use that term all the time. I've seen it used in New York Times and stuff.
One way I like to think of NIMBYism is if a bunch of Karens all got together and said, "Hey, no more houses, no more apartments, no more airport or union around here."
Yeah,
and, that's the low level way I explain it to people.
Yeah. So
I've actually had some experience with NIMBY when I lived back in Nashville and everything. My favorite bar, which is now long gone, closed thanks to the gentrification that we so fought against. NIMBY actually helped us keep college transplants from coming into our bar. It was awesome. They protested Vanderbilt from entering into the gold rush in Nashville. It was fantastic. We loved it.
Huh.
Oh, so we got a pro NIMBY person on our stream here.
Well,
I'm pro for that fact alone.
Interesting. All right, no, this will be good discussion. Ryan, keep going.
Yeah. So so just give you here's the I think it's obvious that we're in a housing crisis right now, right? Rents are real high, and this is a problem that is usually specific to heavily populated urban areas. But what basically happened was that in a lot of the big cities, that's where all the good jobs are, right? LA, San Francisco, New York,
and where most of the highest paying ones are, at least.
Yeah. So a lot of the highest paying jobs are in the big cities, and a lot of people go to those cities because they want the jobs. So that brings in thousands and thousands of people. And then San Francisco is a good example, right? So they were doing their part to attract talent, especially in the tech sector. So Twitter moved there, Facebook and Google are all there. And then they're like, well, okay, we're bringing in 40,000 new people. Shouldn't we build more housing to accommodate them? And the city, because zoning is controlled on a local level, not a national level, basically the NIMBYs, right? NIMBYs who usually show up to city council meetings, local government meetings, they said no. And so that perpetuated like a severe housing shortage. And so homelessness went up, rents go up, it's a supply and demand thing, right? So we're severely lacking in housing stock right now. But it's impossible to build anything because every time someone proposes building a high rise or anything that's a little bit taller than your house, they get very, bent out of shape. And the way the rules work now is we give the power of development to local governments, and they have been kind of shirking their responsibility. So, and the main opposition comes from NIMBYs, people who say, hey, yeah, I like, this is a problem particularly strong in California because a lot of people here identify as liberal, but they're like, yeah, it's great to build low-income housing. It's great to build homeless shelters. Just not
next to
here, me. Right? And so that's why we call it not in my backyard. So they support it in theory, but not where they particularly live, and that's the problem that we're in. So my project was started. I used to be the online director for a group called Abundant Housing LA, and I think there's a lot of overlap between what we do and the Yang Gang because we're connected on the concept of abundance, right? We want the abundance mindset. And the idea is that we just build enough housing for everyone and maybe even more. That's a good thing, right? Gives you more choice. Rents will go down. And so I started a YouTube channel kind of around that idea. And at first it was really just a housing thing. But then I saw Andrew Yang's zoning policy when he was first, I think it was around maybe last year of May. And then he used the word NIMBY explicitly. He was the only one that was willing to say that. So I just kind of went on a hunch, and I'm like, well, what's up with this guy? I should check him out. And so I met him in person, I think 3 times. He was here during the campaign trying to fundraise, and I got a chance to talk to Andrew Yang for a few minutes each time, and I was like, yeah, thank you for, I thanked him for using that word because it's like I can't think of a single national level figure who has ever uttered that. So
I had no idea it was that, unspoken within the political realm.
Yeah, it's because these folks have money, right? Homeowners have money, especially in the big cities. And most of the politicians are beholden to their interests. And even if they, like a lot of them, if you talk to them in private, they actually agree that we need to build more. We need to increase density. But they just don't, they're too afraid, because that's where they're getting their checks from. So that's the big problem we have to face today. And I took a chance on him. Maybe he'll at least be able to move the needle, on some of the things. And so I actually, instead of looking for a job, I did the YouTube thing full time. That's how much I believed in him,
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people thought I was crazy. Like Ryan, shouldn't you be looking for a job instead of yanking people all the time? I'm like, no. I'm lucky I had enough savings to support that. But I was like, no, I got to do this. And it's been a pretty wild ride because so after the campaign wrapped up, I was like, okay, well, I got to go back to reality now. I got to start applying to jobs again. And I'm working as a property manager now and my boss hired me because he saw my YouTube channel. So
nice. That's really awesome how that ended up working out.
I know, and I was like, wow, so maybe, it can pay off. There's a lot of uncertainty for a while, but it worked out for me in the end. And but it's the great thing about the Yang Gang is I feel like this was the first, like I've had so many like political experiences where I'm just like, you work so hard and you do the best you can to like get the word out, and you just like end up being defeated and depressed, right? But this time it was different. I was like, wow, like being part of the Yang Gang actually made my life better in very tangible way. So I'm pretty grateful about that.
Honestly,
yeah.
I would say the same thing for me.
I want to hear that.
Of humanity first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to a lot of people that was a tagline, but I actually caught myself choosing how I would respond to someone or a certain interaction with just the mind, like, you know what? No, I'm gonna be the best person of myself that I can represent. I'm gonna be the most human self that I can represent, I mean, like, even if it's just me driving, it's like, all right, I have a bumper sticker with that name on it now. Like, I have to make sure that I get ample time before I change lanes. There's something like, like, this is something that, to illustrate, like, it really actually changed who I was, or at least influenced my behaviors, right?
Yeah, for the better, right?
Right, yeah, that was the goal. And then I took pride in that, which was the cool thing. Me being a military guy, I totally resonate with your statement. You feel a call to serve, as it were, like a call for action.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people think it's rather outlandish to, pause your life and transition at least a segment of it to do something else, not for the money. That's for sure, but in your situation as well as mine, and,
that's interesting.
Volunteers that came out to Iowa, we were in a position where it's like, yeah, I can do that. And we decided that this mission was important enough to do that. And it's cool to wrap that up with and you got your next job out of it. Because you meet a lot of cool people when you find yourself in alignment with them for a greater purpose,
Yeah, greater purpose.
Yeah. You see it time and time again in history, whether it's people being a missionary, or whether it's people, working for, Andrew Yang, or it's people, serving in the military, you name it. You see that kind of bond that's created over working together for something is what really changes the world. It really, really is.
Yeah. And one of the things I always try to keep in mind is like, when I went to Reno and Iowa, kind of just threw caution to the wind and just went all in on this. Many of us that did that had the means to do so. And I always try to remember the fact that us being in that position is something to be able to do something that we want to do, and be able to do it is something that I want everyone to be experienced with, whatever their interests or passions might be. And that's something that I think it's always important to keep in mind. Now, but speaking to your YIMBY projects, Ryan, someone obviously that's more well-versed on housing and zoning than we are over here, how would you view Andrew's in particular's zoning policy? And additionally, I do recall, if I remember correctly, there was one of the fundraisers that you went to. You managed to actually pass him along like a package of information that he found very useful. I think it was after he had a stop in Nevada.
Yeah, let me dig that up. Actually, well, I'll find it. While you guys are talking about something else. But yeah, so I made a little packet where it was like, okay, Andrew's zoning policy. You could actually check it out right now. I think he brought back his policy pages recently, but it really just says NIMBYs are the problem. There's no specifics in it, and that was the criticism I got from like a lot of my housing friends. It's like, well, yeah, he used NIMBY, but where's the details? How do we, right? And for me, for me, I've been in a position. I used to work for the mayor's office of housing up in San Francisco. I did their data stuff for a little while. But for me, I saw all the problems that happen kind of on the back end and, what happens in the government, what happens in the industry. Now I'm learning a lot of real estate industry stuff, so I'm getting experience in that. But the main problem I felt was that there was no political will to solve it. The solutions are already there. If you want to look up how we can solve the housing crisis without it being too disruptive to, maybe Jason mentioned that earlier, but like sometimes when new people come in to your town, they start taking over and, it's disruptive, right? Sometimes it changes the culture. There's gentrification. And so the way we can solve that,
people out of our houses.
Yeah. But the way to solve that is something called missing middle housing. So right now we have like a dichotomy between single family homes, which are for rich people, right? One plat. I have to explain this because there's a lot of propaganda out there where it's like single family homes is not a luxury. What's luxury is apartments, luxury apartments and condos. And when we think about it, it's like, that doesn't make any sense. It's actually more of a luxury to have one family living on one plot of land versus 25, right?
And that's how most of the country is.
Yeah, but we are very land space entitled in America. Like we believe everybody deserves a big yard and
right. That American dream, the white picket fence.
Yeah, and then I think we pursue that dream to the point where it's self-destructive. Like for example, in California, there are homes being built in extreme fire risks area. Remember Paradise?
Yep.
The town? It's ironic, but it burnt down.
Yeah.
The whole town burnt down. And they're like, well, you shouldn't have been building there, right? I mean, hindsight's 2020, but it's like, why are you even there, right? And because people want that dream so bad, they're willing to commute hundreds of miles just to have it, and they don't even have their, it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. So,
well, my one question is like, with your movement and everything, like, how do you keep Airbnb cooperatives, like companies that have like formed with multiple people, that hire people to go out there and take out leases in like multiple places, from taking over like the denser housing that you want to build? Because a lot of times denser housing is close to like where people want to be, the happening places.
Yeah, well,
and Airbnb cooperatives come in and just like buy it up. Like when I first moved back to LA a couple of years ago, I rented at Blossom Plaza, and I swear 90% of the units rented there were to people, running Airbnb like businesses and stuff.
Yeah,
literally to the point to where they had like they left the door open, and it was literally an entire studio apartment just filled with plastic totes and stuff of bed sheets, towels and stuff, and they had like a maid cart that would go down the halls to like the different units that they own and everything for like the Airbnbs. It was essentially a hotel. Like, how do you prevent, like when you build more housing that's denser and stuff, how do you prevent people from coming in and essentially taking it over and running it like a miniature hotel?
Yeah, I mean, the way to think about
jobs essentially, because like hotels start hemorrhaging money and laying off staff because Airbnb kills them. Like, how do you stop that? Like, what's your movement's like solution to stop that?
Well, I like, yeah, it gets pretty complicated, but like the way to think about Airbnb is like, it's not a okay, sorry, I was reading a comment. So Airbnb is really a response to the housing crisis. It's not like, it's not the cause, it's the symptom. So the reason why people are doing Airbnb is because there's a severe housing shortage and they know they can rent out these units. And it's not just renters, but even people who are homeowners, the landlords, they're drowning in mortgage payments right now, right? And so they have bills to pay, and renting out rooms is one way, they can try to make up that difference. But just to give some perspective, like in LA has a housing shortage of close to million units. So I think the number is around 750. Sorry. I'm getting a bunch of ads. Okay, sorry. so in LA, if you look at the reports, we need about 750,000 units just to meet population levels. That is what's considered a healthy. So we are in a massive, massive hole that we are just starting to crawl out of right now. And I don't know what to say, because like you look around like downtown LA, you see all this construction going on, right? And people are like, there's so many housing being built, I'm like, that's not the problem, but actually it's not enough. What we see is being built is not enough. So that's the part that's a little counterintuitive. But this is like backed by the data. All the experts agree that this needs to be done, but it's really a political problem that we weren't able to touch. So
you mentioned like how Andrew Yane's mentioning NIMBYism for the first time, and how his solution was a little generic, and it was basically, here's the problem. I would argue to a lot of people that once you identify the problem, that's not only the first step, but if the solution is to let market forces work themselves out, that's already a solution just without the government required involvement. That's actually a feature, not a bug. If the solution is stand back and let the world work itself out, and that would work out, that's a good thing, not a bad thing, right?
Yeah, well, the way I saw it was that he was the only one. Like, the solution's already there, Right. If you talk to the experts, they already know what needs to get done. Right. But nobody was talking about the problem.
Right.
And then so I appreciated that he identified the problem correctly. And,
right. Yeah. All over the place. Making an apartment complex can be quite profitable. You just need to be allowed to make the apartment complex.
Yeah, but it's not that simple, and I see it firsthand now that I'm working in the real estate industry. It's like, whenever you propose a building, it has to go through about 50 steps of red tape, and at the very end, the city council can block your development if they find a reason. And so that's where the NIMBYs come in. They're like, and they say some ridiculous stuff, man. They're like, oh, well, I was at Pasadena for a public comment thing, and this lady was there, and she was like, oh man, the shadows from that apartment is going to cover up. Look at this little tiny home. It's not even hers, and it's gonna like the way they talk about housing is nuts. Like, she's like, don't you think shadows from palm trees are so much more better than shadows from that building? And I'm like, dude, we're in a housing crisis. There's 4 units of affordable units dedicated to this. It's not going to solve everything, but if you build this, it will help house people, right? And they just don't totally get it, because they are prioritizing aesthetics over the need of housing, having people a roof over their head. And it's like no surprise when that's happening everywhere. There's no surprise that LA is the #1 homeless capital in the country right now. We are the absolute worst. We have about 70,000, maybe 80,000 people living on the streets right now. They're just wandering around. And I mean, something has to be done, right? Like,
yeah.
But there's no will to do it, because I don't know. It's a territorial issue, right? People are like, they buy a home and they get very protective, and so they don't want those people moving in, right? It ties into racism. You can look up redlining. It's so to kind of tie it into Trump, what Trump is doing right now is like a couple I think it was last week, he explicitly defended NIMBYism.
Mm-hmm.
And then up until that point, I was after Yang dropped out, I was gonna stay out of the presidential race because Trump is crazy, okay, but maybe even by accident he might deregulate the housing market a little bit. I was open to that possibility. But last week he just made it clear that he is going to defend this thing, and I was like, okay, nope, I'm supporting Biden now, and so there's an inherent problem with the whole idea of the suburbs, because if you look up the history of it, there's a guy named William Levitt who invented the concept of it, and he was explicitly a segregationist, and nobody wants to talk about it. Yeah. So, yeah, housing is a very unpleasant topic, and even it doesn't matter if you're on the left or you're on right. Nobody wants to talk about it. And even with the Yang Gang, I had to be careful because Yang Gang, who were homeowners, got really touchy when it started bringing it up. Sure. So I think that's the reason why Andrew kept it kind of vague.
Do you have an area where you think a suburb is no longer, I guess, a suburb and is closer to a city, if that makes sense? Like I can think of plenty of examples where a suburb is well on its own right to being just a downright city. Like I'll give you back to California, Fremont. So Fremont is technically one of the largest cities in California, but most people look of it as a suburb of San Jose. It's just on the north side of San Jose.
Oh,
right? But it's got over 250,000 people in it. That is a downright city in most of the states in the country.
It's
right?
just like my hometown of Walnut Creek. I mean, it's like,
it's probably changed a lot
at this point, but it's still considered a suburb of Oakland, and you're like, the fuck,
right? Exactly.
Yeah,
or Pasadena in LA.
Things are
Pasadena, Altadena, like.
Yeah. At what point is a town less of a suburb and more of a city?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not clear cut all the time, right? Because things change, and then people don't realize that these changes have been done. But so kind of tying back to what I mentioned earlier, missing middle housing, I would recommend looking that up, because that is a solution that all of the housing people I know have agreed upon, and it's bipartisan.
Say it again.
Missing middle housing.
Middle housing.
Yeah. Right. So right now we have a kind of like politics. It's very polarized, right, between single family homes and these massive concrete tower high rises, right? And I get that if you're a homeowner living in a quiet neighborhood, you might not want a 100-story apartment complex built right in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would personally override that. Like there's more important things than how buildings make you feel personally. But like, this is a great
picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah. So the stuff on all the way to the right is what people think is ugly, it's soulless, it's often run by mega corporations, right, that don't care about you. But look at all these options in the middle: duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, courtyard buildings. You don't really see that too much. Townhouses, right? And even included is like live workspaces and co-living spaces, right? And so this is a way to increase housing stock without disrupting the character of the neighborhood. That's a phrase like NIMBYs like to use a lot, but.
Mm-hmm.
But see, this way you can actually slowly add to the needed housing without changing the environment too much. And the best thing about it is that because these construction types are easier to do, you can hire local developers instead of having to get this massive corporate team, right?
Sure.
So
So, what would you say is one of the driving forces in the lack of missing middle housing in general? Like, why is it more of a reaction to go for these large high-rises that can house a lot more people in the same amount of space?
Again, it's political. So, like in California, there's a bill called SB 50 that would have made they would have allowed, like, like, keep in mind, a lot of even building duplexes and triplexes are illegal in many parts of the LA, especially on the west side. So every time you propose, like, okay, let's convert that single family home into a duplex, and they start freaking out. They freak out. They're like, oh my God, oh no, like, and so that bill SB 50, which was sponsored by, like, our YIMBY hero Scott Wiener. He basically, what happened was, just 2 years ago, we worked really, really hard on it. I actually went up to San Francisco to lobby for it, and then we got all the votes necessary. But but what they did was they actually shelved the bill through a technicality, and then they basically killed it because they tried to delay the voting process, and because they knew it probably wouldn't have passed during election year, and they were right, so they killed it. So there was the solution to the housing crisis, and then they went way out of their way to kill it. So
yeah, it just goes to show, like, people don't understand the importance of local politics. Like, the majority, like a little more than half, they'll vote for the presidential election every 4 years. A little less than maybe 40% will vote in the midterms. But when it comes to your local level politics, which in my opinion has a drastically large effect on your day-to-day life, especially, as you said, housing and education, etc.
Yep.
People just seem complacent and apathetic. And so you were mentioning earlier, though, that when you propose a building, there's like 50 steps of red tape, and then there's the public comment section where a lot of the Karens, so to speak, come out and say their opposition. Which, in terms of how local politics work, is the public comment section a great starting point, or maybe even a very strong way to influence how a proposition goes?
It is, because so the work that we do at YIMBY, the day-to-day stuff, is try to show up at these hearings and then provide a alternate voice, right? Because there's the inherent problem with the way we do things is that they usually hold these hearings at like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Who can show up to that, right? Working people? No. Students? No. So what ends up happening, the people who crowd these things are always retired or rich, or they're rich so they don't have to work, and that's all. So that's all that's the only perspective they're hearing. So that what we're trying to do is give a little bit of an opposing voice to support development. But it's rough when it's like we can't be at everyone, right? Like there's like hundreds every day, and so we're just trying to pick the ones that we think would add the most value. But if the government itself is not working the way it should, then and so that's why people get burnt out. They keep on trying, but in the bigger picture, things don't get better. Same with the homelessness folks, right? Like I know some people who work where homelessness services, and these are like the nicest people, right? They're spending their own time out of the goodness of their hearts to try to help their fellow human beings. And then every year, like homelessness went up 11% last year. It went up 14% in the last couple of months. It's like things are really out of control. Like I don't want to scare anyone, but like it's actually really, really bad. So
without a doubt, I mean, and it's going to continue to get worse during this pandemic until like something's done to actually put money in people's hands to where they can afford rent.
Yep. I totally agree with you with that. And where are they? What is the government doing? What is Congress doing? Well,
they're on break.
Yeah.
On vacation.
They're about to go on break in 2 days, and we're going to be we're going to be like left with nothing. or a month. So.
But has these hearings changed in format? Because I understand there was recent hearings in LA during the George Floyd demonstrations, whereas public hearings were made publicly online. So a lot of people were able to attend now because it was online. Do the hearings or do the public comment sections for housing has changed in that regard? And
I should know more than I probably should right now, but I do think there's been a shift, and a lot of it has to do with like a lot of people are unemployed, and they have the time to go to these things. And but online hearings are great because that's something you could do even in between work, right? If you work like a desk job. So, but the thing is, it's going to be very unpleasant because these folks aren't used to hearing the other side, So a lot of the people working in the city council or like local governments, this is the first time they're hearing like, oh, what? There's actual problems in our cities? What? Like for real? And so it's going to be a shock, And I do think like a lot of I don't know, it just feels really combative, right? Everything these days. I think a lot of it is coming from that. So.
And would you happen to know, like, procedurally, how can one push a change, like the standard hours for which these public hearings happen? Like, let's say we want to push for this to happen on Sunday afternoons when the majority of people are free to attend.
Oh man, I wish, but yeah, we need to elect better people. That's all I can, David Kim has a very good chance now.
Yeah, I'm launching for this campaign heavily right now, and I see a tremendous room for growth. It's great.
Yeah, and he gets it. Like I don't get along with a lot of the people on the far left, but I feel their pain. I know where they're coming from, but I don't agree with their solutions. But he's done a very good job of like bridging the gap between the progressives and the moderates. So I have a lot of hope for his campaign. Yeah, he has more patience than I do, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you guys met him, right? Like,
yeah,
he's really.
No,
really?
We'd love to have him on here. By the way,
oh, you should totally, yeah.
If you want to shoot a recommendation to him, we'd love to have him on.
Okay, yeah, I'm in touch with him, so I could make a mention.
Beautiful. Yeah, he's got an exciting campaign that's going on right now.
I've heard
people talking about him as the next AOC.
Wow. Yeah.
That's the way I describe it. Like, listen, guys, if you guys want to see those Now This Politics videos of someone just spewing facts about UBI in Congress, like this is our opportunity to happen.
Yeah, it gets me a little nervous sometimes.
And lit, elect this guy.
Yeah, and that's what I meant, by the way. I meant like as a celebrity, not as like a clone or whatever.
Right.
I meant that AOC's kind of become a household name, but we have 400 or I don't even actually know how many.
As she should be. I mean, she's literally one of us. I mean, like her politics or hate her politics.
I don't.
She grows like right in front of us. She's willing to show that she grows right in front of us. She's wrong.
Yeah.
She admits to it. Like she changes her stance. Like she admits, I used to think this, but now I think this. She doesn't try to go back and revisionist history her stances. It's
just to give a
much more moderate, right? which even though
she's a real fucking human being, she's not a fucking politician.
Right? Yeah. She's much more modern. I'll say. She's a politician of our generation, right?
Yeah.
And she's reached a celebrity status, and I very much dislike a lot of things and stances about her, but all the same, if a pro UBI person could achieve that same level of celebrity and resonate the same way with our generation and represent Congress, that's a phenomenal thing. So I'm excited for David Kim. A lot of people outside of California haven't heard of him, but
he's just to give an idea like what kind of person he is. So he did you see that video of him like with a microphone, like a megaphone, and he was just like swearing, like what the fuck is going on? This was like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for those that know, he marched to the home of Jimmy Gomez. The
I
incumbent,
know. I was like, holy crap.
and was on his literal front yard, just basically calling him out for.
Yeah. So keep in mind that this is a problem with the Yang Gang as well. But like, we have to be careful not to scare the old people too much. You know. But so there was a comment left on my Facebook wall somewhere by an older person who was a Yang Gang, by the way. And she was like, I don't like the way he's swearing, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. And so I tried to convince her, look, like he's speaking to his audience, you know, this is not for you. This is for the kids who he was with. But he actually came into the thread saying, oh, I'm sorry. You know,
nice.
when I'm in Congress, that I will not conduct myself that way. And I understand, you know, and I was like, oh, and then that this person, she was like, oh, wow, this guy is great.
Well, that's the one thing I would hope is he would like freaking, you know, conduct himself in that way in Congress. We need to shake Congress up.
That's debatable.
Keep their own damn minds and shit. So
yeah,
like, I mean, I wish AOC would get up there and start swearing. Like,
yeah, David's going off
on that, you know, freaking, you know, Tea Party guy that like, you know, called her a bitch on the front steps of Congress.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I wish she would have like went in there more guns blazing. Instead, she went in there calm, cool, collected it, and you know, like she still eviscerated him in like the best ways possible. But I was like, oh, come on, be meaner. You gotta
yeah.
No, I think AOC's speech was very well said, but now David's going out of his way to make sure that he is at the service of his future constituents. I would like to say as much as possible. Like he even does office hours on weekends, so he can directly hear from the people that he wants to represent.
Yep, and I love the fact that he's like reaching out to small businesses, trying to promote them. That is great. You know, like that's the stuff that we need right now. And so
I'm volunteering for his campaign, so I'm a little biased, but you know.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I forgive you. No, but he really is as great as people say.
Supported his campaign and you know phone banked for him once, so I mean he's a pretty cool guy. You know, he's one of the candidates that we need to protect and like you know not like be so brashly like throw him out there and everything. Like we need to keep him safe. I feel, you know, I think we need to conduct ourselves like we did with Andrew above and beyond, and you know, constantly humanity first. And that's like something you know not all people understand, but
right.
You know, but he's someone with a real chance, and he's like someone with you know who could like you know really make a name for us as a movement, and you know, so I'm like all down. I love him, and I just, you know,
and he's really good. He's really good at telling you what you want to hear.
Oh, he's really good.
I'm like, I see what you're doing there, David. Oh, yeah, you're good.
It's interesting. Yeah, you say that. But one interesting comment I'm just going to highlight from our audience. Okay. You know, talking about messaging is really important. I certainly agree with you, Bella. I don't remember that. Conversation, but yeah, it's messaging is on point.
Hi Bella, love you. You're awesome.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
But no, I remember the conversation. I mean, people were like throwing him out there. Yeah, he's like a badass and trying to like package him as this anarchist. He's going to go into Washington and he's going to burn it down. And you know, he's going to like he was going to go walk into freaking the floor of the house, like Scarface, and like say hello to my little friend after doing a big fucking table of coke. You know, they were trying to market him as that, and there were like these freaking memes coming.
He's so not that, man.
Yeah. And I'm like, he's totally not going to do that. Like we can't like portray him as that. You know, politicians. He's going to be a damn good one. You know,
I think so too.
We need to protect him a little bit, and you know. Maybe wait for his second term for the Scarface memes, you know?
Yeah, I remember. So when he was first starting his, he lives in my district, so that's kind of why I'm pretty close to him.
Koreatown.
Yeah, and
I do have a bias against Koreatown though. Like if there's one place in Los Angeles that I hate the absolute most for traffic, that I would like be totally cool with an atom bomb going off, it would be Koreatown, because I can't get through there. I've lost so many side view mirrors in Koreatown because the traffic just sucks.
Yeah.
All right, I just said Koreatown's the best.
Korea's the best. Oh, do you want to move into Koreatown? Actually, I'll do a little plug. ktowncoliving.com. I'm working as a property manager. We're moving in. We need tenants in.
Do you have any 3-bedrooms, Pierce? Gianmarco?
Free bedrooms. Free? Did you just say free?
No, I said 3. 3. The number 3.
Oh no, sorry. We already have studios.
Oh,
yeah. But anyway, okay. but I talked to David when he first started his campaign. Back then, it was just him, and he was just hanging out with the Yang Gang. That's it, And I saw him once. And I'm like, oh yeah, what's up with this guy? And then so I was like, yeah, I like David a lot. And so over Christmas.
It's a bot.
Over Christmas, I got a little bit of Christmas money from some of my relatives. I'm like, well, it was like a small amount. It was like $250. Yeah, I was like, oh, I'll give it to David. I like him, And then he made a really sweet post about like, oh man, a friend of mine gave me his Christmas money for a campaign, and like. And I was like, oh. So since then, he's gotten too busy, But
there's a lot of parallels between his campaign and Andrew's right now.
yeah. He's too busy doing important stuff.
Yeah, I remember one of my first interactions with them was, I think it was with you at the house party we threw at Barbara's place.
Wait, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. Oh yeah, we tried to do a really bad live stream. I remember that. Yeah. So, but as far as I can tell, he's the same guy. He's saying the same things. I haven't seen him change. Some people, the success goes to your head, and then become a different person. But that's not true for him. He's very pure in a way.
Exceptional.
Yeah, running for your first term of Congress, there's a lot of success involved. I think it's just more so a lot of personal debt and exhaustion and
So.
I don't think anything goes to your head. I think you just, because like at that point you don't have everything that, a seasoned politician has. So you're like controlling everything by yourself. You've got like your hands in everything. I mean,
Mm-hmm. But he's doing all the right things, I feel.
I think it's just, he's tired. He's got a lot on his plate.
Yeah.
So one question I want to ask you, this is a change of topic.
Okay.
If that's all right. So the Legion of Builders and Destroyers, have you heard of it?
Sounds familiar.
Okay, so this was one of Andrew Yane's proposals for helping with zoning laws.
Oh,
the idea was creating. So right now the Army has the Army Corps of Engineers.
Oh, I remember that.
I don't remember the detail of the Legions and Destroyers, but I was assuming since you were a housing guy, you might actually remember all of it. I don't remember if it was to like evolve the Army Corps of Engineers into this, or if it was to create an additional thing. But it was basically where local governments required federal assistance with fixing zoning issues. The Legion of Builders and Destroyers could come in. Again, I might be fuzzy on the details.
Yeah, I mean, the plan itself is probably pretty fuzzy, is my guess. But there's a very specific thing.
A great way to solve like every problem known to mankind, because the Army Corps of Engineers are fucking geniuses. You need a freaking bridge streaming over like 2 canyons, in a matter of like 25 minutes. They got you. I mean, just demilitarize them and send them out there into the world and like send them to LA. Hey, we need 750,000 new places to live.
Let me send my packet.
I linked the link on the private chat for policy.
All right.
Hold on. Let me pull up my packet because I think that'll explain things.
And while you're pulling that up, I'll read this off.
Okay.
I can actually put it up on the screen.
Yeah, modernized military spending. Our service members are our bravest Americans, and they comprise the finest fighting force on the planet. Often they are not being put in a position to succeed, either at home or abroad. Many service members are returning home with issues or injuries and aren't receiving the right support or opportunity. We need to invest more money and resources in treating our soldiers with the care that they deserve. Today, loose nuclear materials, cyber terrorism, misinformation, and other unconventional attacks pose a grave threat to America, and these are less impacted by manpower and equipment on military bases. Money and resources should be redirected to places where it can do the most to protect us from the actual threats we're facing today. And a problem to be solved, the military budget makes up for 54% of all discretionary spending, much of which is focused on defending against threats from decades ago as opposed to threats of 2020.
Yep.
Well, Pierce can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but also I think a lot of the military budget goes out because, like, in the I remember my dad bitching about in the early 90s, right before he retired from the military, that when they started integrating civilian jobs into the military more like thoroughly to create more jobs for civilians and everything, that they would have to call an electrician to change a light bulb when they have like trained electricians on base that could change a fucking light bulb. So I mean, I think having spending, like, if we take out the civilian jobs from the military and like streamline it, maybe, unless they've like already done that to a degree, and actually use the people that they have trained like there to do things.
Yeah,
probably make it a little bit easier.
So I've never heard of not being allowed to change a light bulb in your office.
Well, that was an oversimplification.
But yeah, no, it honestly, it does stand to make a good point though, in that there is several things where you'd be like, I could just do that myself and you won't let me. But due to various regulations or occupational safe and healthy hazard or whatever it's called, it's like, nope, sorry, you are not actually allowed to assemble that desk. The desk pieces must remain there
until the guy from IKEA gets here to fix it.
Well, I mean, I guess if you injure yourself at that desk, they wouldn't want to be liable. Or, I mean, like, I'm grasping at straws for an example, but the point that you're saying still has a large amount of truth in it. The overall point, though, of hiring civilians as a method of waste, that actually is a very valid and intentional part of government spending. So Congress mandates the size of the military force. And quite frankly, sometimes that size is a little less than what is necessary to do various missions that have been assigned. So one way to get around that is, instead of hiring, another soldier to do the job and recruit them and train them, you just hire a civilian to do the job, or a contractor to do the job. And that gets around the personnel manpower limitations. Frequently, these contractors are more expensive than service members. That is actually the norm. The vast majority of contractors are paid more than service members. So yes, that definitely ends up costing more.
Government procurement is a huge industry.
Yeah,
and that's where Bernie makes his money.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
that's what he's defending. If you're just being straight up, like he's defending the government bloat that earned him his 3 houses. You know?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So we got to be more honest about that fact, I think. And I am sympathetic, like I said, to these folks, but if they don't want to talk about money stuff in a straightforward way, we're not really talking about anything.
Well, I mean, to defend Bernie, he did like inherit one of those houses, and the other house, when he's not in Washington, he rents out.
Yeah, but he defended a guy. I got
pay for it. So, like, he's not, he's not a billionaire. Like, he's, I mean, he's no Elizabeth Warren. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but if you look up a guy named Michael Weinstein, he's been getting his money from him, and Michael Weinstein is a billionaire, and he made his fortune off of government procurement. And he's getting housing advice from him. So that's why I don't trust him. Yeah. So anyway, I sent the link to the
So what is this Google Doc that I'm about to blast out?
So this is a Google slide, but this is basically, I made a map. I was trying to figure, like, housing is complicated. And like most people don't know what's going on. Even I don't know what's going on half the time. But I tried to make a map of all the players involved, at least in the political space. And that is what I gave to Andrew Yang. Yeah. So I think he understands. Like, oh yeah. I don't know. Can you bring it up?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he lost it. I was like,
I can pull it up. Yeah, one sec.
So it was like, hey, you know, I love your attitude, yeah, Andrew, but your plan is a little light on the details. Here are the details. So just like real quick, you have the NIMBYs, right? You have the NIMBYs, the bottom center area. Those are the folks, and they don't like us, so they talk a lot of shit at us. But the NIMBYs have money, so they funnel the media with all these, like, they pay money to the media folks to basically promote propaganda about, apartments are bad, right? And so if you look on the people on the right, these are all the folks that everybody hates right now, right? Tech industry, developers, landlords, venture capitalists, foreign property investors, right? China, right? And to be fair, some of these people do deserve, the scrutiny, but the game really is that it's a deflection away from the problems that they are causing. And for example, sometimes it gets criminal. If you look up, you guys know Jose Huizar? You heard of him?
I've heard of his name before.
LA City Council, District 14. The FBI raided his house. Yeah, and he's going to go to jail. He's screwed. So he got busted because the NIMBYs are restricting housing supply artificially. Building permits have become like a premium. So what happens is that some of the developers, the less than ethical ones, right, and there are a few, it's called pay to play. So if you want to build that nice apartment that you've been working 20 years on over here, well, what's in it for me?
Yeah, you said city council can just, pull it away at the very end after you've invested.
Yep, and they're like
tons of money.
Man, they can make grown men cry now. Like, they're just like, they've been working on this project for like 5 years, and just at the very end, they're like, nope, you're, they'll find any reason to be like, your plumbing isn't, up to code or whatever. But so there's like this blatant corruption that's been going on in city council that are just now starting to emerge. They've been doing this for years, but only now we're finding out.
Yeah.
And
it's been pretty much the only city to get caught for a while is essentially it.
Yeah, but everyone's doing it.
Chicago had the most corrupt city council and local governments in the country, and then it's just other cities were better at not getting caught.
I believe that. Yeah. So
which city? One more time.
Chicago.
Chicago. Oh, famous Chicago.
They had the record for like most like arrests of like city councilmen and all this other stuff.
Oh my God.
It's like insanity, the corruption that was running through, that still runs through their local politics and everything. But the problem is systemic nationwide. It's just, Chicago is like really easy to catch because about it for whatever reason.
Yeah. So the one thing I've learned, I think, in the last couple of years is you got to be careful because there's a lot of bad faith actors out there who are basically accusing their opponents of the very things that they're doing. If that makes sense. So you're like, hey, you're a developer shill. That's what we get called. YIMBYs used to be called, hey, you're shelling for developers. Well, why are you such a sellout? And it turns out these guys have been taking money from those folks. I wish they were giving me money. Our movement struggled for a long time because we were like for example, abundant housing, LA, right? We're the biggest most visible housing activist group, I think, in LA right now. But it's like run by like 3 people. Last year it was like 1 person, Leonora, and she was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to have a job, and so even then, a couple years ago, if you said housing, like LA has a housing shortage, they would have laughed at you. Yeah, so I have a lot of respect for these folks that went like the Laura Foote, who's the founder of the YIMBY movement. She's up in the Bay Area, but she's fearless. She went to these public comments in a crowd of everyone is hostile. She went by herself, and
I still think that with all the like random properties and everything, like that would put a little dent like in the homelessness if we just did away with Airbnb in like large cities and stuff like that, because
where would they go though?
Revitalize and create more jobs in the hotel industry and service industry, around hotels. And then it would, like, because like I said, Blossom Plaza, like I know at least 80 of their units at one point when I was living there 2 years ago were Airbnbs being rented out to just passing through that wanted a good location.
I would say that's a Band-Aid though. If you look at the stats, like that's not going to cover 750,000.
I know it's not going to cover it, but it's going to free up a lot of it, because you have like people who are literally making it into like a hotel business. Like they're going in, they're hiring people to rent multiple units.
That's assuming they're going to convert it into residential housing, which we don't have. They're probably not going to do that.
Well, no, I'm talking about like the apartment buildings and everything, the densely populated ones. They're going into.
Oh, I see what you mean.
They're going into apartment complexes like Blossom Plaza, and they're like renting out all of these apartments and essentially running it like mini hotels. Yeah. They're paying people to fill out, file for leases and everything with them. They're like, hey, $750. Here's a guarantee that I won't fuck up your credit. All you have to do is go in here and apply for this. We'll cover the deposit.
You might be right on some level, but I do think
running them like hotels and stuff. And, I mean, I know 80 houses isn't much, but that's like Blossom Plaza for as an example. I know 80 units isn't much, but that's like 80 to 160 people off the street, whether it was a 1-bedroom or 2.
You could be right about that, but I feel like that's like coming from a scarcity mindset. Right. People are doing that because we just don't have enough. And so they're trying to figure out all these like clever ways of how to and the solution really is to have an abundance of housing. That's why we're called abundant housing, And if we had enough housing for everyone plus more, people can do whatever they want. You can Airbnb, who cares? Right? If you don't like it, go live somewhere else. And so it's a hard thing to confront, because if you look at the numbers honestly, it's like you realize, oh my God, we are so behind, and it's just like you realize there's this mountain you gotta we have to climb Mount Everest, and then we're just at the bottom. But I want to kind of end on a positive note, because there are solutions out there. It's called modular housing construction. And this is something that the developers are really excited about right now, because, like, for example, in Koreatown, they put up a 50-unit apartment complex in 6 days. So I was like, whoa, it blew my mind. I'm sure, there's more involved, but if we wanted to get out of this housing crisis, I think we can, and we can get it out of it fairly quickly, but we just need the will, and we have to be okay with more density. We can't be and that was the whole reason why I started my project, because I wanted people to have positive feelings about density, because in Japan, for example, rents are cheap, dirt cheap there. Why? Because they built a shitload of housing. And on the streets, it would blow my mind, because I was on the streets and you had real estate people begging you, please move into our units, please. They were like, hey. I'm like, whoa. It's like being in another world. right? And that's what you get when you have an abundance. You have the real estate people begging for you, you know. So,
Japan's not a cheap country, but you can get an apartment in Tokyo for $700 a month, and it's not like a garbage apartment, you know. And that comparison, that's like saying I got an apartment in New York City for $700 a month, like a whole apartment.
Hopefully, you won't die while you're there, right? Like,
it would blow people's minds.
Yeah,
but you're right. It's a supply and demand issue, and you know, over there they allow the supply to be built, and you just need to kind of get out of the way. And
so I got a little combative during the campaign, and you know how it is, right? You'll be like fighting with other candidates, but I'm trying to get back to the more positive side of it. It's like, hey, you know what? Living in a condo, living in a high rise, there's actually a lot of cool things about that. And that can be our new American dream, you know, something that's more sustainable. Like,
if you don't have kids, I say this as a homeowner. I'm actually a landlord, even. Yeah, I'm one of those.
Oh, you're one of the bad people then. Okay.
So yeah, exactly. Because I have a 4-bedroom house and I rent out 3 of the bedrooms. You know, I live here. I'm the bad guy. So anyway, from that perspective, I can tell you, if you don't have kids, just rent an apartment or buy a condo, or, you know, but like be closer to where it is that you're trying to be. Have, you know, that convenience of higher density living. It's totally worth, you know. I think when you have kids, your priorities change a little bit. I don't have kids, so I'm just saying, like, as a whole, there's nothing wrong with condos and apartments. Like, I'm saying this as someone that's been on like both sides of the coin here.
There's another way to solve the housing crisis, which is to move the jobs out of the city.
Well, that is happening on its own. Due to automation.
And, you know, actually this ties into Andrew's thing too. The VFA, right? Venture for America. That's what he tried to do.
Yeah. And actually that's something we should touch upon too, because it's been over news. I've been seeing over the past few months that, like, basically, especially with work from home becoming a more and more possible in people's lives, a lot of millennials and people our age are moving out of major cities where they felt like they needed to be there because of those jobs. And now that job is just basically mobile, they're becoming first-time homeowners in very small rural areas and pulling people out.
Yeah, that's interesting. That might actually have a big effect. Maybe rents will go down. You know,
it's an unintended product of $1,000 a month that Andrew was talking about in terms of housing when he tied into that.
That's another great thing. UBI will also solve the housing crisis, because if you want to live in the middle of nowhere where there's nothing, with $1,000 a month, you can totally do that. You know, if you hate the city, you know. So I don't know.
$1,000 a month stretches a lot farther in Nashville than it does in New York City. But yeah,
$1,000 a month in Nashville. Like,
oh man, I saw this.
Nashville, not Nashville, but has spent a good time, you know, in Nashville collecting like degrees from Belmont. I can tell you, it is like definitely not cheap to live in Nashville. I mean,
I guess I could have picked a better example. Would you prefer Oklahoma City? Would that be a better example?
I usually when I explain housing things to people, I pull up a map of LA. I'm like, okay, look, the jobs are here. Yeah, there's housing way the fuck out over there, but who's gonna commute that far, right? Like, no one.
Believe it or not. So when I worked outside DC, I had a coworker that lived in Pennsylvania. He would work. Yeah, so he would work 10-hour shifts 4 days a week to put in his 40 hours. And he would get in at 6 a.m. and he would leave at 6 p.m. And he would just drive like 2 hours each way every single day. But I mean, he did that because his wife was from that area in Pennsylvania, and because the housing was just so much cheaper. He was able to have like a whole house and yard for the kids to run around in, safe neighborhood, the whole thing for like $130,000. And you're not going to find that in DC. That's just not going to happen, you know? So for him, it was worth that extra, hour and a half each way of commute he was doing. It worked for him, but I think that
I guess work is
well, it's completely unrealistic to expect that to be a large scale solution, though, because then you're also just going to congest the roads, and like that works for an individual. That does not work for a society, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you got to keep in mind, like, when you have long commute times, like another thing that dense housing density solves is long commute times. You can live right next to your workplace if you have enough housing. And right now, especially in LA, we're spending half our lives in our car, and not only does that lower your quality of life, it's unfair to poor people who's commuting from East LA all the way to Santa Monica, right? Just to like clean someone's shit, right? And so, yeah, it's just like we're making it hard for everyone, and that's not, even the NIMBYs, the saddest thing is the NIMBYs are like, why are all my kids leaving me? Because they can't afford to live near you, man. And then that's when they start. Yeah, I don't know, some of the tougher people in our movement, they have those conversations and they make people cry, like,
sure.
So, because it just hits you, right? You're like, oh my God, what, So it's unpleasant, man. And I'm used to getting yelled at every time I bring up housing. I'm just like, oh, it's a bummer, right? And I'm hoping we can get past that, at some point.
I'm hopeful too, man. I'm rather optimistic about that.
I think so. I think we can.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, Ryan. It's been an absolute blast to have you. If people,
thank you.
If people want to read up more about this or follow you, where should they go?
Just go. I'm most active on YouTube. I'm sort of like taking a pivot. I'm doing more music things now, but there's all the footage. I was doing YouTube full time last year, and I have about 600 videos, I think, that I made during all the crazy campaign stuff. I'm a little embarrassed to like look at them again, but
YIMBY Arts, right? That's the name of the channel.
It's all there.
Yeah,
it's all there, especially for the Yang Gang. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thanks for having me. This was fun.